press conference here, and Benny did a great job. Very proud of Benny and what he stands for, the way he plays. I'm excited. As I mentioned in the big room, it's an exciting year. Our expectations have changed. Starting with our coaches, our fan base, and our players. The guys have worked hard, done the things necessary, put us in a position to be successful and have a good year. And I'm excited about the way we're going about our business.
All right, questions for Coach? Raise your hand, we'll get your microphone. We'll go down here in front.
Hey, Mark. The statistic of wins by a quarterback, do you like that stat? Do you think it's fair, kind of unfair, considering a guy may start and get credit for a win, even though he may not finish the game?
I haven't really put much thought into it. I know, just from my past experience the past 2 years, Steven Johnson was a guy that I had to give credit to that. I don't pay attention to other people, I don't know the situations, but in our team, it did make a difference. Steven was a winner, and somehow, some way, may not always look pretty as a team, or maybe even his performance at certain times. But at the end of the day, he seemed to always come back, make a big run, make a big throw, do something to put us in a position to win the football games. And you have to put some stock in that.
Go to the camera platform right in the middle.
Coach, you've got some veteran running backs, but I want you to talk about Cavassier's smoke a little bit, what you saw in him coming out of high school and what you like from him so far.
Yeah, Cavassier was a guy that we loved. We loved the way he ran the football. Reminded us of a bit of Benny in that he gets very tough yards. He's very strong. He's a big backside, but he can still run. So he has some power and some strength, and very good lower body strength. But we really like Cavassier. I love what I'm seeing from him so far. He has a great attitude, great work ethic, great young man, and we're excited about him.
We'll go right here on the back row on the right side.
Mark, I know you got a lot of experience with Jimbo's offense going against Jimbo. Could you kind of describe it for us and why it's so difficult to go against? And then he's taken over a program that ran the spread for so long, and now he's putting in his. How difficult what do you expect from that?
Yeah, I touched on a bit of that in there. Jimbo, I learned so much from Jimbo and had a great experience working with him at Florida State, and learned a bunch, and things, some of the things we do at Kentucky, I took from Jimbo and in the program that he's run. But he's a very good offensive coordinator. I think there's a lot of things you could talk about, and it starts with his attitude and his toughness. I think you can see that with his demeanor, and he's so demanding, demands that perfection, but you have to respect that. So it's very hard and very tough. I'm not comparing him to any other offensive coordinator, I'm just saying in general for him, it starts with an attitude and toughness. And I'm not sure if that's the same with everybody else or not, but also, I think with him, I don't know if it's talked about enough, but he has a great way of attacking people. To him, it's not about just running football plays. There's a rhyme and reason for everything. He sets things up, and he will know how to attack you. So if he's expecting a certain defense, expecting something, then he's gonna take his shots. And he has the right people in place. His percentage of shot plays are high, and they could go for the throw. But it comes with a mentality of being physical as well and having some balance. But he sets things up very well. It doesn't take long to watch his film when he's playing people that that he has a good understanding of what they're doing defensively of the way he sets it up and attacks. What was the other part of it?
Well, just what you expect at A&M, taking over a team that's more spread and kind of putting that.
Well, he'll put his stamp on it, and I was a part of it. Just the change. I don't know what it was like prior to me being at Florida State. I wasn't there. I came in with Jimbo, and I have some very vivid memories of those times because I always try to be a good soldier when I was an assistant coach, and whatever he said we were going to do. Of course, you have your opinions and you're going to discuss things in the staff room, but he had a mentality and a tone that was going to be set, and he did that, and you got to have great respect for that.
Right down here in the front.
Thinking back on when you were first starting out, how would you describe the challenge of being a first-year college head coach?
How would I describe it? If you look back on it now, going into year 6 for me, really like a whirlwind. And I know that's a pretty broad, general comment, but there's just so many facets that you think you know. I grew up in a coaching family, as you know. My father was a coach, my brothers are coaches. I grew up, going to high school gyms and high school practices. I've been around it my whole life, and obviously had the pleasure of working with my brother Mike, who took over our program as a first-year head coach, and worked with him for 6 years, and studying my brother Bob, who I was so close to, and watching him for all his years prior to me being a head coach. And you still can't prepare for it all. You just can't. I think in one word, it would be volume. Just the volume. And that, to me, I feel much more comfortable heading into year 6 with that, obviously. But the volume, because that can be frustrating. It's all important. Just like the things we've done in Kentucky. I mean, cultivating relationships, raising money, building facilities. We can't win without it. That takes time, that takes relationships, that takes effort. To do all that, to renovate the stadium, to build a football facility that we deserve to be in the SEC, to get the fans involved and get the attendance up and do things you can to create a positive energy. But then just getting a handle of the whole organization is the volume is overwhelming, and it takes some time and some years to get comfortable with that. And then the other piece of it would be a touch frustrating, is because ultimately we're all coaches, and the time spent away from the coaching piece of it at times is frustrating, because I would like nothing more than for my SID, who I love, tell me, does such a great job, just to leave me alone, let me be in that room. And that's hard to do because we have obligations.
When you think back to your first year, what were some of the mistakes that you made that you look back on yourself 5 years ago and you think, I can't believe I did that?
Oh, I don't know if there's any one thing that jumps out at me. Certainly there's decisions, there's mistakes you make, and you just try to learn from every situation and grow. You grow from, positive experiences, negative experiences, and there's certainly some bad beats that you never forget and decisions that you make. So I think ultimately it's just we're in a learning environment every day, and you try to grow and get better every day.
We'll go to the camera riser all the way to the left.
Coach, right here. You actually mentioned you were in here when Benny was speaking, and there's no doubt he goes after tough yards and things like that, but he also kind of said he's a smart running back. Maybe a cerebral running back. Do you see him in almost a different mold of a running back now? I mean, the guy who picks up tough yards but also kind of knows.
I love Benny, but I had to chuckle because I only heard the last 2 questions, and I had to chuckle because I have to say whoa to him all the time. So he doesn't exactly try to evade contact. So sometimes in practice even, and we're not full go, but you love and admire that he knows one speed, and that's for going full go. And he's tough. I think he's, we're trying to educate him, help him, and bring him along, because he has a long future, and to avoid some of the unnecessary hits and contact that happens. But I admire that about Benny, but like I said, I have to tell him, whoa, like slow down a bit. You know what I mean? At times, and that's very rare for a football coach to say, but when a defense, we're trying to thud him up, and he's, trying to run somebody over, there gets to be some conflict there in practices at times. But overall, his maturity, he's a true junior here at this SEC Media Day. He's only been in our program 2 years. He's going into his 3rd year as a true junior, and he's getting better each and every day. He's been so consistent for the first 2 years, and you can see him maturing daily.
We're right here in the middle.
How hard has it been for you to change the culture at Kentucky with football? Most people, when you say Kentucky, they think basketball. You have built a strong program there with some big wins, and do you feel like you have changed the culture?
Yeah, I think it's a constant, grind to change the culture. I think, for me, and I mentioned this before, changing the climate is very easy, and then everybody loves that with the change, and you'll see the change in some quality new head coaches that are coming into this league the next 3-4 days that you're going to see, and in that positive energy, that's easy, to change a climate. You come in, get some uniforms, get some fancy talk, get a new building, in that climate it's easy. Deep-rooted culture that's been somewhere positive or negative for 50, 75, 100 years. That's deep. And that takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes a relentless pursuit to get that done. And I am proud of the work that we've done and some of the things that we've done in changing that culture, and we're going to continue to do that.
Go down here on the front row, or to the left.
Just defensively, it doesn't seem like the on-field product has matched the talent level of late. To what do you attribute that, and why can we expect it to be different?
Yeah, I think we've been too terribly inconsistent at times. And again, I think as you build, you want a solid team top to bottom, and you need the depth to compete. And you know, some of it has been the attrition. We have to do a better job of preparing our players, of developing depth, developing this summer to be able to withstand that schedule late in the year. And you play some very, very talented running, teams, and you play some teams with, 2 NFL first round running backs and things like that. And if you're not up to the challenge, you're going to get exposed. And so we've done it. When we've been consistent, when we won football games, we've held up against the run, and when we haven't, it hasn't been very good. So consistency is the key, but that comes with everything that you're doing in the program. It's not just one thing. It's not just one scheme. It's not just one game. It comes from continuing to do that. And we do that, and we've had a formula for 5 years, and we're going to continue to refine that and develop that. But you want to do that, and that's we build, select, and develop. You build a winning culture, you select the right players, and then you intentionally develop them to handle that and to do that. And that's what we're going to continue to do. But with that being said, you look at all areas of your program. What is your area of expertise? What can you handle, in the program, and make sure we're doing the things necessary. You look at the things you do well, you look at the things you do not so well, and you look to improve on that.
Go to the camera platform right there in the middle.
Coach, with the relationship that you have with Jimbo Fisher, what will it mean this year to be able to face his team and to do it at Kyle Field?
Well, it'll be a real challenge, both with, first and foremost with Jimbo and the expertise and the way, the respect I have for him as a coach. And the second thing was we know what kind of venue you're stepping into. Unbelievable environment. It's you know what you're getting into. And for me, first time in the league playing there, it'll be another one, at the top or near the top of some of the amazing venues in this league. And it'll be a real challenge, but again, we'll be excited and prepared and ready for the challenge.
Go over here at the back left.
Coach, what was it like to be sitting in your seat and to find out more and more about Marcus Walker in this situation, and how did you handle that with the rest of your team?
Yeah, it was always a difficult situation when you have a lot of kids in your program that you just, like I just mentioned, the development, you're constantly educating them. We're putting so many things in front of you to help them be successful, and you want them all to be successful. When they're not, it bothers you. But when it comes to decisions, it's never easy removing somebody from your team. But some things, it's not so difficult. That's a very easy decision once you get the information, once you get the info that you have to get to make your decision. Sometimes they're not so difficult to make because we all know what's right and what's wrong. I'm all for second chances and helping kids, and I make decisions for these kids that I want somebody to make for my son.
Go over here to the right, second row, Leon.
Just to follow up to what you said about Benny earlier, just what would you like to see from him this year? What's the next step of his game? And do you feel like he gets the respect nationally that he deserves?
Yeah, I was asked that question in the other room. First part of that question, I expect him just to be Benny, and that's continue to mature, continue to do the things necessary to be successful. I love the fact that he went back and credited Coach Graham there last year, because sometimes we've all seen it before. He had great success as a true freshman. And then he comes in as a sophomore, and he started a bit shaky. And not that he wasn't good and very solid player, but there were some things that were uncharacteristic. And that's where it takes the seasoned coach, an expert in that area, and he relied on that coaching. And Coach Graham was hard on him and pushed him and went back to the details, but then he responded. Instead of thinking you got it all figured out, And so that's what I talked about. If he continues to mature and just be Ben, and he's working exceptionally hard, he has a great attitude, a great work ethic, and I expect him just to continue on that path. And if he does that, he'll have his success. But just as he mentioned, if we have success as a team, we have a lot of good players. We have players that Benny wasn't in a position a year ago, he will be this year. But we have players on this team that turned down high draft picks to come back because they want more, they expect more, they want to improve this football team, they want to improve themselves. And if we have success as a football team, then the accolades will come for kids individually, and I believe Benny's a lot like that. I personally think he deserves all the respect that people give him and more, because he's done a great job, and I love his attitude and his energy and what he does for us. I think, but he'll be the first one to tell you it's more important on the team and the focus of the team.
Got time for a couple more. We'll go down here at the front.
Mark, there's been a lot of talk in the game about how sports betting will impact college football. How do you think it will, and would you be in favor of a uniform injury report across college like they have in the NFL?
I'm prepared to do whatever things are necessary. I'm going to be honest with you, I really don't try to hide much of that anyway. My feeling is some way, some form or fashion, that's going to get out. Let's be honest, I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. There's been people, people were digging into that kind of stuff long before it became legal. But I'm all for, doing whatever's necessary. I'm pretty forthcoming with my injury report anyway. If somebody's not playing, I basically say if I know they're not playing. I just feel like it's going to come out, and they'll have a lot to hide that way. But I think education is a big piece of it. I can go back to my years at the University of Iowa. This was a long time ago. And Hayden Fry, the legendary Hall of Fame coach that I have great respect for, I could sit in those meetings and listen to him for hours. But I'm not sure my players feel that way. But Hayden was great. But he was very into that back in the 80s when I was in college, and he was very mindful of that and talking to us about be careful who you're associated with, who you're talking to. Don't give out any information, and just trying to educate us on those things. And I think we all try to do that and educate guys on doing what's right and wrong in all situations. And this is just another piece of it. And we just want to do things right and be respectful and make sure the integrity stays the way it is.
We'll go down here on the front row, right in the middle.
Why did you choose CJ, Benny, and Josh to represent UK here?
There were 3 great examples. The nice thing is there could have been 3 or 4 more. That's not always been the case, and I appreciate that. There was good choices. Mike Edwards that I brought here before, so he's been exposed to it, and I have great respect for Mike and the way he plays, and he represented us. And there's, like I said, it's a much harder choice this year because we have a lot of good leaders and exceptional players, so that's a good thing. But these guys, are certainly great examples of young men that do things right. Each of them, really all 3 of them weren't, high stars or whatever on the recruiting trail. They're the epitome of development, which makes you happy as a coach. Not only the physical development, but the mental approach and the leadership that they have. And that's contagious, so I have great respect for these 3 young men.
All right, we got time for one more. We'll go to the camera riser in the back on the right.
What's a healthy C.J. Conrad and Dorian Baker do for the quarterbacks and just the offense in general?
Yeah, it'll mean a great deal. I think last year, certainly we missed Dorian, because he was having an incredible camp, and it was heartbreaking because we were going into our last scrimmage. He was within his last 4 or 5 plays of being removed from the scrimmage and got the injury that set us back because we weren't overly deep at the outside wide receiver position last year, and he's a difference maker. So having him back full strength will help us. And CJ the same thing. CJ on the field kind of speaks for itself. He's one of those very unselfish players. His blocking is underrated. What he does and the way we can utilize him at the tight end H position, and he has a knack for that. Also catching the ball, because as people were always asking me, and you covered us locally, why we're not getting the ball. Well, we started getting to a point where people were all over him. So all of the ways we create to get him the football, some people started picking up on. But to have an outside weapon will definitely help in all those areas.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate you.